We are in the presence of greatness. And we bring him to you because we want you to see that there are people of color who look just like you and I, people of means, people of spiritual and intellectual prowess that have left their marks on the world. We bring him to you because we know that you can do the same thing. Having said that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Percy Sutton. Hopefully it's comfortable for you, sir. I'll bring you water.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Let me find one person in this audience. I just want to get a feel of. Tell me, someone volunteer to tell me how old you are and what you're interested in school. Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Cherry. I'm 16 years old. I'm interested in acting.
Interested in acting.
Interested in acting. Yes.
Why?
That's what I love to do. It's my hardest.
How long have you been interested?
On my, been doing it on my.
Really?
Whether on stage, in school, out of school.
So you're an actor.
Yes, I am.
When are you real and when you're acting?
Not right now. I'm not acting. Right now, I'm being serious.
You're sharp. You're sharp. You're sharp. May I have a young lady to introduce herself, tell me how old she is, and tell me what she is interested in. May I have a lady, please?
Hi.
Hi. How are you? Would you stand,
I'm
please?
good. My name is Gina Rivery, and I'm also interested in acting. Yeah. Oh, I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior.
And you're acting now, or
Acting
you're
and
real
dancing.
now?
Oh, right now,
Yes.
I'm acting.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, if there is a person, or there are persons who are interested in college, would one of you stand and tell me why you're interested in college and what college you're interested in going to?
Hi, my name is McIntosh Smith. I'm interested in going to Hampton University. That's what I want to do, and I feel like it's going to be a better education for myself.
You want to go to Hampton. Have you had any contact with the people at Hampton?
Yeah.
How far have you gotten in those contacts?
Well, right now I'm going to after about like a couple of weeks to find out if I'm going to get.
Put it down, Keisha. We can't hear you.
I don't have a hearing aid yet.
Oh, sorry. I had to wait another couple of weeks to find out if I'm going to be accepted or not.
I hope you get into Hampton. I know something about Hampton. As a matter of fact, 100 years ago, I was a student at Hampton. And I have wonderful memories of Hampton, especially in the wintertime, when snow was on the ground, and it was cold, it was freezing, and you'd see the trees with icicles on them. And there was a waterfront near there. And I remember it so well because I was there as a student to learn how to fly. We had a student training program then. It was something we fought for. My family has been very active in the NAACP, as have I. My family had been going to jail for many years in the civil rights movement. And the thing that attracted me to Hampton was an older brother had gone to Hampton. Now, I was the youngest of 15 children from the same mother and father. My mother was my first grade teacher. My father was my junior high school principal, and that mean man was there when I got to high school. He was mean. Oh God, my father was mean. A severe disciplinarian. And I thought I didn't like him when I was growing up, but my mother made up for whatever deficiencies I thought he had. But what I didn't know is how much my father suffered in making it possible for me and my older brothers and sisters to avoid some of the discriminations that occurred there in San Antonio, Texas. I had 14 older brothers and sisters. 3 of them died as young children. The rest of us survived. And 6 of my older brothers and sisters were my teachers before I was graduated from high school. My father and mother believed that every little Sutton was going to learn, through here if possible, through here if necessary. And I was bad. I was a very bad child. And every one of my sisters and brothers would tell you I was very bad. They were surprised that I'd survived. They were surprised that I didn't go to jail for something other than civil rights. We were prepared to go to civil rights, jail for civil rights. But they thought that at any time, someone would pick me up and take me away to jail. And they did. When I was 12 years of age, I was arrested and put in jail, not for civil rights, but for my own reaction to a police officer who slapped me. The police officer slapped me because we had a parade in San Antonio at that time, the Fiesta. And the Fiesta season is on right now in San Antonio. What did Fiesta season mean? It meant a lot of parades, it meant a lot of giving away of candy and gifts and things, and people threw them out of the cars they were riding in, the trucks they were riding in. And I stepped in front of a young kid who was not black and not Hispanic. And she screamed and pushed me away. She acted as though I was touching her or bothering her. All I was doing is stepping in front so I could catch the candy. And this police officer grabbed me and slapped me without even asking any questions. I instinctively reacted. I kicked him in his shin. I didn't mean to do that, but I was reacting to a blow that was struck. The result of it is I was arrested, and I was taken and spent overnight in jail. Now, being in jail for a crime of violating specific laws that had nothing to do with segregation, that was my first experience. I've been in jail over the years 14 times. And each of them, except for that time, has arisen out of my protest. Protest against poor housing. Protest against absence of jobs. Protest against not being able to eat in the lunch counter like everyone else could eat. Protest against having to ride on the front of the bus. One of the most famous things that happened to me was there is in existence now a tape that was played by ABC back in the 1960s of me describing what it was like to be in the Freedom Ride and have people object to my sitting in the front of the bus because you were supposed to ride in the back of the bus. Why were you supposed to ride in the back of the bus? Because you were black. And black people were supposed to ride in the back of the bus. But in the front of trains, the reason you ride in the front of trains is because of the coal dust that came from the trains burning coal, came to the first cars of the train. So you ride in the front of the train, but the back of the bus. On this ride, in May of 1961, at the very height of the Freedom Rides, I told the story of what it was like to be on a bus in the front of it, knowing that I was violating segregation laws, and having people ride by the bus with baseball bats and guns, attempting to intimidate me, and to know what it's like to understand people from your own community who are afraid and don't want you to violate the law because it may have impacted upon them. And while I was riding in the front of the bus, I tell the story. The people in the back of the bus, my people, black people, were saying, "Mister, come on back here. Don't cause us no problem." That hurts. It hurts because you understand why they're saying that, because the problems they're talking about is those people who are riding outside might stop the bus and beat up or kill all of the black people, blaming them for me, for my conduct. I told the story that on this 2.5-hour ride from Atlanta, Georgia, where I had wanted to get arrested, because I'd heard of Parchment Penitentiary in Mississippi where I was going, and I didn't really want to go to jail in Parchment Penitentiary, because they were known to beat you badly there. I have on my arm some cuts. They're cuts that were inflicted upon me in Brazos jail by not an officer, but another black person. His job was to whip all of us. And they had a belt that had wire at the end of it. And this one, my arm, they cut veins, and my arm just spurted blood. And I was determined not to let them take me to the hospital. I was determined to wrap up the blood. I took off my shirt, I wrapped it tight around my arm, and I stayed there. I didn't ask to go to the hospital, I didn't ask to go to the doctor, because I wanted them to see what it was like to see a person bleeding for doing nothing but being alive. On the way on this bus, we approached a place called Montgomery, Alabama. I knew a lot about Montgomery, Alabama because I'd seen a young black person when I was a cadet, the Tuskegee Airmen, in Tuskegee, which is not too far from Montgomery, Alabama. I had seen, on a visit to Montgomery, I had seen a police officer beat a young black shoeshine man to death, beat him to death on the steps of the state capitol. I had seen people arrested and beaten. The only reason they were being arrested and beaten was because they were black. And as I got closer and closer to Montgomery, Alabama on this freedom ride, on this bus, the veins of my head swelled as large as a finger. And my head began to thump. And I thought it would explode. The reason I felt that is because, I don't know, I haven't told you, but I was a stunt pilot at one time. I flew planes and did crazy things with them, and I jumped out of planes. I was always reckless because I was bold, and I wanted to go places that other people had not gone. And I jumped out of this plane very often on a tour with a parachute, and I landed. But the place I never wanted to land, and I thought about this on this bus, I never wanted to land with my plane on fire, because I never wanted to die by burning up. And I never wanted to die by drowning. But the fear that I had on this bus was that they would set the bus afire. They had done it just the day before. Set a bus afire. So my head and then my throat, I felt like I was going to choke to death. And then the closer we got, to Montgomery and the bus terminal. And people knew of my decision because there was someone on the bus who had let go our secret. That secret was we were going to go to the lunch counter and ask to be fed. It was illegal under the laws of Alabama for them to feed me. But by that time, youngsters in college in North Carolina had been going to jail for 3 times already. Why were they going to jail? They were demanded to eat at the lunch counter. And my sisters in San Antonio had gone to jail for eating at the lunch counter. As I was getting off the bus, we had arrived at the bus terminal. As I was getting off the bus, a man stepped in front of me, a large man. I remember him vividly, even today. He had a shock of red hair. He seemed to be about 10 feet tall. He was not more than 6 feet and a half, I suppose. And he took out a badge, stepped in front of me and called me by name. He said, "Mr. Sutton, there's a dangerous crowd out there. Please don't stay long at the lunch counter." The badge was an FBI agent. The reason that FBI agent was there, I assumed, is because at that time the NAACP had not participated in Freedom Ride, and there was much publicity about Percy Sutton, the president of the NAACP in New York, going on this Freedom Ride, and was that going to be a test of whether the NAACP would be involved in Freedom Rides? So with all of that, the President of the United States had apparently ordered the FBI's involvement, and they had tracked me from Atlanta, Georgia, down there. And not only had they tracked me, but they had put this FBI agent there. I walked down to the lunch counter. I was surrounded by people screaming, "Nigger, nigger, nigger this, nigger that." And I sat down at the lunch counter, and the people were screaming, "Don't feed him." And the lady said, "What do you want?" And I remember the voice of, I said, "Some orange juice, please." Now, why would I talk like this? Because I was choking, I was frightened, and yet I was happy. And that lady put some orange juice in a glass and slid it down the counter. And my brothers and sisters, let me tell you, the nicest orange juice I ever tasted. Why? Because I'd broken another barrier. And even though the orange juice was hot, I had demanded something that they said I couldn't have, and I'd gotten it. The next night, that night I spent in a safe house, that is, where people wouldn't know where I was. And the next morning, surrounded by a number of people, police and otherwise, I went to the airport to fly into Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi, during that time, was known for killing people who were black that they thought were out of place. And I was going to be out of place. What was I going to do? I was going to do a simple thing. I was going to go to the white bathrooms. See, they had black and white bathrooms then. And black people couldn't go into white bathrooms, and white people couldn't go into black bathrooms. I was standing at the urinal in the airport when 6 police officers told me to stop using the urinal. I ignored them. I finished, and I started out, and they arrested me. And they took me to jail. And then they took me to Parchman Penitentiary. Parchment Penitentiary was bad news. They didn't whip me, but we sang liberation songs. And once again, there were the black people who were trustees, who were there to anger us, to try to get us to do something other than sing songs. I went back in 2001 to mark the 40th anniversary of my freedom ride. And guess what? The City Council of Jackson, Mississippi had 9 people. 7 of them were black city council members. The mayor was black. And 2 of the members of the Supreme Court of Mississippi were black. And one has to ask the question, suppose all of the people had not died on the freedom rides and in protests, on the lonely highways, not organized people like I was organized, but people who just were taken off and lynched. Times have changed. Today, some of you may listen to a couple of radio stations I own here in New York. Any of you know anything about WBLS? One of my radio stations. Anybody know anything about WLIB? Another one of my radio stations. I have 5 radio stations in Jackson, Mississippi. When I was a little boy on a farm, I can tell you that my oldest sister, who was a graduate of Howard University, undergraduate, and then Howard University School of Medicine, was practicing medicine in Upper Montclair, New York. When her husband, also a doctor, practicing with her, in an effort to have a baby, my sister, I'm told, I was only 4 years old then, I'm told that my sister permitted herself to be hospitalized for 5 months to help the baby be born. During that period of time, I'm told, her husband left her. And in the course of events, she lost her mind. So I grew up with an older sister who was insane. And we had to move from the city to a farm. But that experience of growing up with my sister, who had moments of rage, screaming, calling for her husband to come back, and then moments of sanity, calmness, when she could help us with our school lessons. My father used to tell us that Cara Jane, that was her name, we called her doctor. Cara Jane is one of the broken wings of our society. And you must always, when you grow up, always remember to look after the poor, to help the injured, to always be reaching back to help people. And I lived that life. I lived the life of, I live at 10 West 135th Street in Harlem. My office is at 361 West 125th Street. WLIB and WBLS are downtown at 3 Park Avenue. My son and my daughter run it now. And they run the other radio stations around the country. We have 19 of them around the country. And we do it, we got into communication because as a child, I couldn't go to the radio station in San Antonio, Texas. Why? Because I'm black. And I used to write songs. Childish songs, but I used to write songs. And I wanted to get them on the radio. Couldn't even go to the radio station. Guess what? One of the first things I did when I grew up, and after I bought WLIB and WBLS, I bought that radio station that they wouldn't let me go into when I was a child. It was a satisfaction that I had sacrificed. Now, what had I sacrificed? I came to New York. I didn't know anybody in New York. I had no family. I had nothing here. Except that during the war, I came here looking for a wife. I wanted someone who would be like my wife, my mother. And I was down, a little second lieutenant, down on Times Square, and I saw a young lady with a woman that was obviously her mother, and a man who looked like them. I decided that woman, she was going to be my wife. I walked over to the man and I asked him, is she married? The date was July 31st. Is she married? He said, no. I said, well, I'm going to marry her. And he looked at me, puzzled. July 31st, November the 5th, I married her. And that established my right to be in New York. Came out of the military, had no job, had no one except my wife. No one I knew. So what did I do? I got a job working on the subway. I was a conductor. And because I knew I wanted to be something, why did I know I wanted to be something? Because I wanted to see what it was like in New York. They said, you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I wanted to see what I could make it in New York. So I took a job working on the subway. And I found that my father had taught me all these skills of remembering things. And I used to work on the D train. I could go to sleep at 125th Street and wake up at 59th Street and open the doors. Go to sleep again, 53rd Street, wake up, open the doors, go back to sleep. I could do it from all the way from 205th Street to Smith and 9th in Brooklyn. Why? Because the mind is a marvelous mechanism. This mind that you have in your body, you can train it. You can train to wake up in the morning like I wake up in the morning. I want to get up every morning at 5 o'clock. My mind wakes me up. I don't need an alarm clock. Because I've trained my mind to do what I want it to do. Now, it gets terribly tired from time to time. The second job I had was waiting table on a dine at a place called out in Long Island. 2 jobs. I'm trying to think of the name of the place right now. I can remember telephone numbers when I can't remember names. I can count money, but not remember names. I can remember reports that are in letters, numbers. I worked every day of the week, 7 days a week, sometimes 18 hours a day. Went to law school, went to Columbia, and then because Columbia couldn't take me, I had classes in the evening, I couldn't take that, and switched and went to Brooklyn Law School. I reviewed books for other kids and wrote out possible questions that they might be tested on. I did all of that because this father of mine and this mother of mine said that every little Sutton was going to learn. And I began to love my father, and it was real too late. He stayed as principal to my high school until I got out. We were in the undertaking business in San Antonio. And so we were undertaking business. My father must have said, why not own the cemetery? So we owned the cemetery. Because people are buried in caskets, why don't we make the caskets? So we made the caskets. And because there are chemicals used to preserve the body, we went into the chemical business. And because white people would not rent cars and ambulances and hearses to black people, we bought the hearses and we rented them to the white people when we didn't need them. So,
Mr. Sutton.
let me close by saying this to you. I hope that as I leave here, at least one of you will say to yourself, Percy Sutton can't do anything that I can't do, and you're right. Huh? If you say that, you're right. You have a lot of advantages that I didn't have. Today, you can make millions as an entertainer, as a doctor, as a lawyer, as an engineer. You can go to all the best schools that I couldn't go to. And I wish you well. Thank you for being patient with me.
Before you leave, Mr. Sutton, on behalf of the entire Wadley community, I humbly thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to come here today. And to you, my young brothers and sisters, I said to you at the beginning of today's program that you are privileged in that you are in the presence of a significant and profound piece of your history.
Could I just share something? I want to share with you. Give me the 2 seconds. I met a man along the way when I became a lawyer. His name was Malcolm X. And nobody would be his lawyer. I volunteered to be Malcolm X's lawyer. And I want to tell you something. I just left his grandson. He has 2 grandsons. One of them is in jail. The other one is not. One day we were leaving court. I was representing Minister Malcolm, as I call him. This was 30 days before he was slaughtered, murdered, up in the Ottoman ballroom. We were leaving court, and I said to the minister, because I was sitting in the front seat of a car, and he was sitting in the back seat, both people surrounding me had a shotgun and a pistol in their laps. The same thing in the back. And I turned around to the minister and I said, Mr. Minister, does this disturb you, all of these guns? He said, yes, counselor, but they feel that they've given me protection. He said, but I have a destiny. And whatever my destiny is, they can't protect me from it. And he said, did you ever, I want you to remember this. I want you to remember this. He said, counselor, did you ever hear the story of the Arab slave who said to his master, Master, oh master, I fear the face of death. Please give me your fastest horse and let me ride. Because he thought that he could ride by day and he'd be safe once sunset. He could escape death. So he said, the master gave him his fastest horse, and on the first day, Omar rode the horse, swift as the wind, and he made it to sunset. He watched the horse, he fed the horse, and in the morning, he started out again. And on the 3rd day, there were 7 paths down the horse, which the horse would take the horse. He started down the central path, he backed the horse out. He started down the right lane, he backed the horse out. Then he went on the lane far to the left. And he wasn't far down that lane when there, in the center of the path, he saw the face of death. And death said to him, Omar, Omar, where have you been? For 3 days I've waited for you to come. Why is it taking you so long? He said, so counselor, that was Omar's destiny. Each of us has a destiny. 30 days from then, from that day, Minister Malcolm was murdered. Have a good day.